It's such a treat to see everyone. Thank you for joining us. Del and I have been exploring this understanding of the principles for years now, and it's had such an incredible impact on both of our lives that we have changed everything that we're doing and shifted it into creating a space to share this with as many people as possible, because it's been so incredibly impactful. And just to give you a little bit of background with myself and my experience, I was on the search. I had, in my 20s, I had like a little bucket list for myself, and I pretty much hit that bucket list and, got all the things that I wanted. And I had a beautiful, healthy little baby and, this beautiful home that I was living in, and everything seemed hunky-dory, and I was miserable. And I will never forget, I was sitting in, my great room, custom painted and the whole 9 yards with like, Linda, you remember the silk pillows and, everything that I always thought, because until we know, we don't know, this will make me happy. And tears were pouring down my face. And I'll never forget, I was on the phone with my friend Kim and just saying to her, where is it? Because it's not in things. It was like my big, because you grow up and you think, oh, when I get married and when I have this and when I get the job, and you think all these things are going to bring you joy and happiness. And that's looking in the wrong direction. If we're looking outside of ourselves for our innate well-being, we will always be chasing our tail. If we think our well-being comes from food, we're going to continually be eating. If we think our well-being comes from a relationship, we will probably go out of our way and be inauthentic in order to keep that relationship. If we think our well-being comes from our job, we will probably overwork or maybe do things that are a little bit out of integrity to keep that job. We'll always be looking outside of ourselves for our happiness. And so I didn't know this at the time, but I got a big aha that it wasn't in things, because I had things and I was still unhappy. And I started going down the road of happiness was a big thing for me when I thought, well, what really brings me joy? And I was innately a happy person, but I thought what really brings me joy is sharing happiness with other people. Like, I love connection. That's always been a really important part of my life, is just people. I just love people. And I started studying with Dr. Robert Holden, who was the creator of the Happiness Project, which was the only scientifically proven method to increase your level of happiness. And that was wonderful and amazing. And he does a lot of Course in Miracle-y kind of stuff. And I got very involved in the Enneagram, which is a personality understanding. And I studied NLP and hypnosis, and sort of, you name it, I've probably looked in that direction. And it was all wonderful. And I always felt as though there was something else. I always felt like, okay, well, when I get this, when I really deeply understand this, then I won't have this block. I always had this story that like there was a block and I needed to cut the cord. And, there was always something more for me to learn, more for me to do. I was constantly running, trying to sort of find the next best thing, because I wanted to be enlightened. I wanted to have this deep understanding of life, and I wanted to have it all figured out. And that was exhausting. And I came across these principles, which we will touch on, which we'll share in our time together, about 5 years ago. And it was a completely life-changing experience. When I came across it, I finally felt as though I could relax. I finally felt as though I could just be me. I finally felt as though there was nothing wrong with me. There was nowhere to get to. It was like, oh, I'm okay. What a relief. Because all these years I was judging myself and looking for perfection. And I was looking in all the wrong places. And the funny thing is that I certainly don't think that I am perfect, but I am perfectly imperfect. And to really sit within that knowing and understanding that I'm okay. Not only am I okay, but everyone here is okay, and everyone on the planet is okay. To see the innate well-being in myself and in everyone around me is not only a comfort, but what a huge, magnificent relief to know that I don't have to continue doing to be okay, that I am already in my fullness, that I don't have to look a certain way to be okay or be a certain weight, which that really made me crazy in my life. I was completely trapped by that at one point in my life. I don't have to have a certain income. I don't have to have my kid go to a certain school. Like all these things that in my life I thought were my identity. I didn't know that they weren't who I was. So what's I've found is so much fun in this understanding, seeing that our innate well-being is within us, is that all of the things that we want, good relationships, it's probably the most important one, you know, our health, all of these things that are so very important to us, they happen organically without trying to sort of like muscle them up. Okay. Like I don't have to manipulate a relationship for it to be the way I want it anymore. I don't have to work on forgiveness anymore. I don't have to try to fit things into a certain little box for it to be okay. It's already okay. This doesn't mean that I don't have likes and dislikes. It doesn't mean I don't have preferences, but what it means is that the outside world is no longer on the hook for my peace of mind. So that is really big. It's really big to the people in my life, but it's really big to me because I don't have to go around controlling the outside in order for me to be okay. When we do that, that's completely exhausting. And it's not something that I think is feasible for anybody, right? To control the outside world in order for us to be okay. That peace is innately within us, no matter what's going on with our body, no matter what's going on with the world. We are okay. And that is the gift that we were given at birth, this magnificent life force, this truth that's flowing through us is always here. It's not just here when we feel good. It's here even when we don't feel good. And knowing that, deeply, deeply knowing that deep truth is a complete game changer, because I know that regardless of what's going on, I am okay. And it doesn't mean, Del and I've talked about this so often, it doesn't mean I don't do the roller coaster. I sure do. It doesn't mean I don't get upset. The tears were pouring down my face last night watching This Is Us. I still get upset. Lee kept saying to me, it's not real. It's not real. I'm like, but, you know, and I still get upset during life. You know, life still happens. There's things that I don't like. But there is this underlying peace and knowing, true knowing that it's all okay. And that to me is priceless. And just one thing I want to clarify, and Del and I have talked about this, you know, when I first saw this, I was very confused by the whole do nothing thing, like there's nothing for me to do. It does not mean that I sit around in prayer position and hope that my bills get paid, right? I function in the world. You know, I'm not walking around, you know, although I love white, I'm not wearing white all the time with like little angels singing around me. I'm like a normal human being that likes to get her hair done. And, you know, I haven't since COVID, but normally get my nails done and, you know, all these things. Like I'm still doing all the things that I love to do, but my life is richer because I don't have to take my roller coaster seriously, because there's this underlying peace that's within me. That's just been complete game changer. And for those of you who may have known a little bit about my past, I had a very, very, very difficult relationship where there were more surprises after we got divorced than during, right? And the freedom that I have from that is mind-boggling. Like I understand it because I just see that I'm not at effect of it, but to be able to come through a really crazy situation and really be okay, to really see the love in it, to really see the innocence of it and really see it, not just words, but like see it. To me, that's freedom of mind. And I think that's what we're all looking for is freedom of mind, because this is where we feel stuff. This is where life's happening. It's not actually happening out there. We're not experiencing the world. We're experiencing our thinking in the moment. And that's going to change based on our level of awareness, which is always going up and down. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Del?
Oh, I love that. You know, so you know what I love about working with you, Andrea, is that we are so completely different.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. We've had similar experiences in our adult life, but growing up, I was not a happy child. I did not like people. I was a really fearful, scared, traumatized little girl. And I grew up like that. And I grew up very, really just always thinking, what on earth am I doing here? What's the point of this? To the point at 19, I actually really wanted to take my life. I was like, didn't even blame life. I blamed myself. I was like, I'm just not cut out for this. I'm not equipped to deal with what life brings my way. But I think so. At 21, I found myself in America, just literally the day after somebody said to me, here's a free ticket, come and visit me. And I look back now and I think, oh my God, I think mind really had a plan for me, because that wasn't like me to be so spontaneous at all. But something inside me just said, go, just go. You've got nothing holding you here right now. Just go and visit. You can always come back and take care of things. Well, that was almost 40 years ago, and I never went back. So fortunately, I joked my car had been stolen a couple of days earlier, so the insurance company gave me this lovely little amount of cash. I was didn't have a job at the time. My flatmate helped pack up my stuff and send it home for me to my mum. But something got me here, and it was here in California, in LA to be specific, that I discovered sort of spirituality. It was the Bodhi tree, to be exact, this beautiful little bookshop that I found myself in. And I spent hours in there devouring everything. It was like every book. And as Andrea said, it was like, Course in Miracles. It was, oh my God, inner child work, codependency, reparenting, numerology, the Enneagram. It was like everything, Wicca. I mean, it was anything I could get my hands on to try and get a grasp of life. And I spent literally, I would say 30 years on that path. I was also in regular therapy for 30 years, trying to recover from my childhood. And all of it helped. I'm not going to deny that it didn't help. It definitely helped me understand that how I grew up was not normal. I know normal is a loose word we use, but it was definitely abnormal and traumatic. And so, but I was, again, like Andrea, I was searching. My relationships were not healthy. I was diagnosed as suffering from codependency and narcissistic abuse, and I kept attracting those narcissistic relationships into my life. But like Andrea, there was that thing inside me that just kept looking for the answer. And I had my head full of information. I mean, I got a master's in spiritual psychology. I understood that we were all equal, we were all connected. I got it all up here, but nothing dropped inside me. I absolutely, at the depth of my soul, kept thinking, not me. I'm the anomaly here. There's, everybody else may be, but not me. And then in 2009, I call it my dark night of the soul. Actually, it was a dark 18 years of my soul. But it was the end of quite a traumatic marriage. And anyway, I visited my sister I don't go into details, but let's just say it was just as Andrea was saying, that it was a shock. I was in shock, absolute shock at the end of my marriage. And I had gone to visit my sister in Spain to just sort of lick my wounds and try and recoup a little bit. And on the way back, traveling through Heathrow Airport, basically on the plane, that short flight from Spain to London, I had a major anxiety attack. And I can even feel it now when I think back to that day. It was like an elephant was standing on my chest. I couldn't breathe. And it was because I was heading back into what I knew was going to be which was a very difficult situation, and a divorce. So when I got to Heathrow Airport, I did what I normally do when I'm stressed. I find the bookshop and the self-help section, and I think there's going to be something new here, something I'm going to hear today. And you know what? It was a miracle. It was. I was standing in that the aisle, and there's a yellow book with black writing on it just sort of jumped out of the shelf at me, and it said, "Stop thinking, start living." Now, I'd been acutely aware on that 2.5-hour flight from Spain to London that my thinking was driving me nuts. I mean, it was literally driving me nuts. I had visions and images, and I was going into the future, and I was going into the past, and I was torturing myself. And normally, I wasn't drinking, and I couldn't take a sleeping pill because I knew I had to navigate the changeover, the transfer. So my plan was, I'm going to take a sleeping pill the second I get on that plane, from London to LA. So, but that book just spoke to me, and I took it off the shelf, and I bought it, and I rushed to get on the plane, and I opened it, and I did not sleep for those 10.5 hours. I just devoured the book from cover to cover. And there was something in it that I had never heard before. And it was written by a guy called Richard Carlson, who I'm sure you've all heard about. He ended up writing Don't Sweat the Small Stuff and things like that. But there was something about this original book that was pure principles. And he talked about the nature of thought. He talked about innate health. He talked about, psychological innocence. He talked about resilience. He talked about everything that we know in the principles. And it was in such a way that I was like, I just heard something. And as soon as I got off that plane, well, for a start, I noticed my anxiety just dropping and dropping and dropping. And when I got off that plane, I was fine. I was like really fine. And like Andrea said, I'm not saying that I didn't have moments, but all my friends were like, what happened to you? You are handling this situation so well. This is devastating, and you're handling it so well. And I was like, I don't know. I read this book, and something just hit me. The thing is, I didn't know it was called The Three Principles, because he'd written it, I think, in '93, and I think it was called Innate Health back then. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that there was a community. I didn't know there was tons of people teaching it. So I just thought this, and I read his other books, and they didn't have quite the same essence for me, but they were great. But I thought, okay, it's just one man's idea, really helpful. But it was only in 2015 I came across it again, and that's when I devoured it, lived it, breathed it, studied with everybody under the planet I could. I was a mentee of Pransky's and all these big teachers, Elsie Spittle and Dick and Bettinger, and anybody I could get my hands on to help what we call deepen our grounding in this. And everything that had been up there just started to drop in, just absolutely started to drop in. And I knew for the first time, like you knew from deep down in here, that I was equal to everybody else. And as Andrea said, I wasn't broken. And I'd spent those years, that 30 plus years before that, trying to fix myself, going to therapy every week, 5 years after the relationship was over, to still keep talking about it because I couldn't understand it. Concepts such as separate realities helped me just let that go, which I'll maybe talk about a bit later today. But the big one for me that, maybe I'll come back to, I'll let Andrea jump in for a minute, but my connection to my wisdom, I really want to talk about a little bit about that in a minute. Maybe I'll let Andrea talk first. But that part, the three parts, I think, well, all of it, I can't even separate. I was about to say, connecting with my wisdom again was massive for me. Knowing I was resilient, incredibly important. And knowing that I am pure potential. I'm not this set person. I'm not my personality. I'm not this image of myself I created as a small child and never thought to question and carried on living with it. I'm not my thinking. Oh my God, that mind full of, you're damaged, you're broken, you're less than, you're this, you're that. I'm not that. I innocently thought those thoughts were telling me something about me. I hadn't a clue that those are just thoughts that just rush through everybody, and they're just energy. And I just grabbed a couple of them and gone, okay, this is my identity. This is who I am. And then since 2015, my life has changed. I mean, you wouldn't believe, number one, would never be, sitting here talking to you, the old me. I would still be living in that like less than mindset, shy, introverted, hiding. Everything's a scary world out there. So it really is unbelievable what this understanding can do for you. So love to get into it a little deeper, but I'm going to hand it back over to Andrea now.
Well, I'm just going to be really quick because I want to hear what you have to say. The only thing that was coming up for me was that I spent years trying to fix a self that I had made up.
Yeah.
And I think that's the crux of it. We spend so much time trying to fix a self that we've made up through thought, which is this creative agent that runs through all of us. And when we take it seriously, we live from that space. This is who I am. When we see the nature of it, the illusory nature, the transitory nature of it, we see, oh my God, I've been believing this stuff for years and there's so much potential. It's like, I liken it to, you're in a warehouse and you've just got like a tiny little fixed flashlight, and all the tiny little fixed flashlight can see is like a book, right? So you believe that's the only thing that's here, and then somebody turns the lights on and the warehouse is like full of furniture for homes and could furnish a city. But we don't know that because we're fixated on this one little book. So we can't see our potential. We have no idea what's available for us. So that to me was like the biggest aha, that here I am trying to run around and fix and figure out a personality that I'd made up. Whoa, that's life-changing stuff.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Della. I'd love for you to share.
Oh, I love what you just shared. I love that. I love how I used to say it. Excuse me if nobody likes swearing, but I'm going to swear.
Cool.
When I realized what I'd been doing, I was like, oh my God, I've been making up shit. And now I know what I'm doing. I can actually make up good shit.
Yeah.
Because we are really making it up. We are making it all up. And that is within our power to just, like you said, just redecorate the room.
Yeah.
We describe who we are. I mean, because that's what we are. We are pure potential. I know now, if I put my mind to anything, I can do anything. In the sense of, I used to live such a constricted life of, well, I couldn't do that because I'm this. I couldn't do that. That's not me. That's not whatever. But now I don't have those constraints or those limitations. If I really wanted to do something, I know I could do it. So what I was going to talk about, because this is a question I get from so many of my clients, is how do you know the difference between wisdom and personal thinking? And for me, I'm lucky in a way because I don't know, however you look at it, but growing up, I know I had wisdom in me. I would say to my mum, this doesn't feel right, or whatever. And she would say, and out of innocence, I know she was trying to protect me, but she would like, I'll give you an example. I had a father that I never met. He lived 2 miles down the road. She would tell me, he loves you. And I never met him. So I would say, it doesn't feel like he loves me. If he loves me, he would come and say hello to me. And she'd go, oh, no, he loves you. Trust me, he loves you. He just can't be with us. Now I passed him going to school and I was sort of look at him thinking, come on, show me you love me. And he just would like look away. I was illegitimate, by the way. My mother was his mistress. So, but she was trying to protect me with telling me that. But what she inadvertently did was have me think that I was going crazy. Because here's my intuition, my wisdom telling me this isn't right. And then there were other situations. There was abuse, and I would say, Mum, this doesn't feel right. She goes, no, you're imagining it. And again, I think it was a way of protecting. But what ended up happening was I stopped listening to that voice. I really stopped listening because I thought it was lying to me. Because I was going to, if I had to trust my little 4-year-old inner voice compared to my adult mother who I needed for survival's voice, I was going to choose her voice. So I completely became disconnected. I mean, I say disconnected, we're never disconnected. It's always there. But I wasn't listening to it anymore, to the point where I was so numb to it or so not tuned into it that I never heard it. So if somebody said to me, well, you know, what's your wisdom saying and what's your personal mind saying? I would just be like, I haven't a clue. I haven't a clue. But as the more I looked into this direction, it's been one of the biggest blessings in my life. You know, I love my inner wisdom. I feel it. I hear it. It's indisputable. I never have to question it. It has a different quality to it. It's not loud. It's not whisper. It's just a knowing, an absolute indisputable knowing that this is the right step for me to take. And sometimes it can be really surprising. And I'm going, what? Really? This? You know, and I have to laugh, but it's like knowing, absolutely, show up, do it. So yeah, I just really wanted to emphasize that sometimes, you know, I mean, some people always had connection to their wisdom. They always knew that, you know, trusted their gut. And some of us don't. But there's hope for all of us. If you have not trusted your wisdom and your intuition, your gut, whatever you want to call it, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's there. And the more that we let our minds slow down, it's like my little Buddha, time for my Buddha, remembering that we all that beautiful spiritual essence inside of us. And when we're clear and we're calm and we're not listening to this chatter, we see who we are at our essence. And when we get distracted and we get a mind full of busy thoughts, insecure thoughts, or fear about the future or everything, it gets clouded. And we forget who we are at our essence, but that has never gone anywhere. So when we know not to pay attention to that fearful personal thinking and our mind starts to settle, we start to see who we are again at our essence. And that's where wisdom comes from. And that's where we are guided. And that's that flow of pure potential to be anything we want to be is right there inside of us. So that's what I want to share about it.
Thank you. That was so beautiful. Such a good feeling. You know, you can just feel, even on Zoom, you know, you can just feel the calmness. You can just feel just the presence of our okayness, which is what I think we're always looking for in every moment. We're looking to be okay. We're looking to feel okay. And we just don't realize until we see this that we're already okay. So what happens from that space is that everything becomes possible. And then we don't have to muddle our way through things. We can just listen to our wisdom, and our wisdom will guide us through things. And it's reliable, it just is. And if you don't hear it, just give yourself some time, just chill, just hang tight. It will show up, it always does. And that's this beautiful gift that we were given at birth, that if we don't have a discussion about it, we don't know it's there, or maybe we don't know to trust it. But you know what I've found, just like you were saying, Dal, if I have insecure thinking, I know not to trust it now. You see, I didn't know that before. I thought if I had insecure thinking, it was trying to tell me something. I didn't know not to trust it. The beauty of it is when my mind is getting really messy and it's, you know, uncomfortable feelings and yucky stuff, I now know, don't do anything with that. When I'm clear-headed, which I will be, because that's naturally what happens. We naturally bounce back. I will know if there's something to do. If there's something that I needed to know from that low state of mind, it will be crystal clear to me. Well, that's a gift. Such a gift to know when my mind is messy and I'm feeling crap. Don't do anything about it. Just let myself settle, because I'm not clear. I cannot rely on that information. So again, it doesn't mean that I would stay in an uncomfortable relationship because I'm feeling bad and, you know, don't do anything when not feeling bad. No, what it means is that I will be clear momentarily, or within the next hour or the next day. I will be clear and I will know this is not for me, but my not for me-ness will come from a space of wisdom, from a space of clarity, not from a space of fear. And that's the game changer. It really is. I want to open it up. If anybody has any questions, I know I put you all on mute. So what I'm going to do is, if you want to, you can either raise your hand or you can just wave your hand and I will unmute you if anybody has any questions. And if you don't, Del and I have the gift of gab, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Hi, Deb.
Hi, Lovey. Hi, Del.
Mwah. So happy to see you.
Good to see you too, sweetheart. I just love what you were sharing, especially when it comes through wisdom and personal thinking, and it's astonishing when you start to understand and you start having a relationship with that wisdom and start trusting that wisdom. You can tell when you're really, really caught up. You can tell when wisdom's coming through and when it's not. And it's such a comforting thing to know that we're not those storms in our mind. We're not the thought storms, that we're not that personal thinking. We're not that insecure thinking. But it's just what a mind does at times. And what I found so interesting over the years since learning this is I used to think I needed a really quiet mind to hear wisdom. So I would try to get really, really quiet. But what I see now is it works both ways. When wisdom comes in, it quiets down the thinking just as much as when I quiet down my thinking, wisdom is clearer. But it can work both ways. So it's really fascinating. And I think along the lines of do nothing, I always like to clarify it as what's my next right thing. Sometimes it's do nothing, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is take an action, go for a walk, not an action to fix the thought storm in my mind, but
Yeah.
sometimes there is an action that does need to be taken. But that action arises from wisdom. And for me, it's God. It's God speaking in and through me. And that there's this fine balance in human form that there's so much that God takes care of that we don't have to. The planet's held in place. It spins at just the right speed. We have gravity, our hearts beat, our food digests, our lungs breathe. We don't have to do anything to know that God is within us and at work. Wisdom's within us and at work. But then there's other things in this human form that we do need to take action on and right action on and discerning. And it's truly something that can happen really quickly. It's not like you have to reach an enlightened state to start recognizing wisdom, but that wisdom allows us in every area of our life to know what our next right step is. How do we love as God loves? How do we see people through the eyes of grace? How do we, navigate in business? How do we, I'm in a season of physical unwellness right now. How do I know what my next right step is? Do I let a symptom just go and kind of resolve itself, or do I need to get medical attention for it? But that all comes from wisdom. It never comes from the thought storm in my mind that automatically says, you have to do this, you have to do that. But when that wisdom arises, we know what to do. And sometimes it's so present and normal that it doesn't feel like anything. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that's what I need to do. And sometimes it's just like this mind blowing, wow, oh my goodness, I never saw that before. So I think wisdom and insight is so natural, it's so beautiful, and sometimes it's so teeny,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's totally life changing. So I love the conversation, and it's just so good to be here with you guys.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. That was so beautiful. And it's true. For me, like that's what I said. It's some people think, is it a whisper? Is it a big boom? I've experienced it so many different ways. Sometimes it's actually a voice that I
Yep,
actually hear a voice from outside.
yep.
Sometimes it's a nudge. Sometimes it's what I can tell that it's a difference in quality for me. When I'm
Mm-hmm.
in my personal thinking, it's like a rat's cage with a wheel in it, and it's smelly and it's rattling and it's noisy and it's going round and round and round and it's not getting anywhere. Or there's this sort of like flowing, this sort of like unfolding. It's the energy I can. That's what lets me know it's not the content. It's just the energy of how it shows up for me. So that's what I tune into. Like Andrea, it's the feeling. I know when it's sped up and it's tinny and noisy and smelly. And I know when it's that gentle sort of unfolding.
Yeah.
But I love what you said too about we don't. I can still get caught up. We all do.
Yeah.
But I can still hear my wisdom amongst the. I love that because because it's a tuning into the energy, I think, rather than the, did I hear it? Did I hear it right? Did I get the directions right? It's like, I don't know. It's just it's yeah. I feel my way through it. So,
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
Yes. Thank you, Debbie. That was so eloquent, so perfectly said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
perfectly said. Thank you, dear. I'm so happy you're here.
Me
Mwah.
too.
I don't know if anybody else has any questions. You are welcome to do this or not.
What else do you want to share?
Or yeah, or if there's something that you want to share that you've seen, we'd love to hear from you. I'll do a little go around. Okay. Well, I can very happily piggyback on what Debbie was saying, because especially about the do nothing, because it can be very confusing in the beginning when you first come across these principles. A lot of the teachers will share, well, there's nothing to do, there's nothing to do. And Del and I have joked about this in the beginning. I'm like, Leah, there's nothing for us to do. So I was like, how literally do I take that? But what it actually is pointing to is that we don't have to do anything about our thinking. NLP, which is a wonderful skill, is all about changing your thinking. So it's actually a lot of work. It's actually a lot of work and can be very confusing. And I know for Lee, my husband, he was an NLP trainer, so he was like heavily involved in NLP. And he really wanted to kick himself a million times when he saw this, because he's like, oh my goodness, I have spent years and years and years coming up with methods to change my thinking, not knowing that it's just thinking. It can't actually hurt me, that I'm making meaning of it. So if I'm making meaning of something, why would I have to change it? I'm the one that's giving it meaning. I'm the thinker. So that I know was like groundbreaking, for Lee, who had done so much work in that field. And, and for me too. I mean, you think about positive psychology, change this thought to that thought. And it's not that that's not helpful. It certainly is helpful. It's not necessary. So it just makes so much sense to get underneath to that, to see what's doing the creating. And that's where the principles point. They point to what's actually doing the creating. So we have a better idea of how this whole thing works. And it just makes sense, or else we're like walking around in the world with like a paper bag over our head saying, I'm sure I'll get there someday. We can take the paper bag off, understand how we work, and it just makes life so much easier. So when our minds do get messy, when we get those insecure thoughts, we don't have to try to muddle through them. We can just see, we know what's happening. We're having insecure thinking. We kind of know not to trust it. I know that when I'm getting messy in my mind, like if I'm feeling insecure, or if I'm feeling judgmental about myself or even about another person, I know I can't trust that. I know if I'm taking something personally, that I'm making that up. Like I'll give you for instance, this morning I was supposed to have coffee with someone at 8:30, and I woke up at about 7, and there was a text message saying, I'm so sorry, I have to cancel. Do you have another time today? Well, so that was lovely. She didn't just cancel. However, I could have gotten all up in my head about it. Like, oh, how rude. Who knows what I could have made up. But previously in my life, like if something would have canceled, I would have made up a story about it. I would have maybe hung on to that. Or if you send an email and you don't get a reply right away, can you imagine all the time that we spend worrying about who's responded and who hasn't responded to our emails? I mean, as silly as it sounds, that can take up a lot of our headspace. And once you see that that's all made of thought, it's like, oh, I don't have to take that messiness so seriously. Like, I don't even have to give that any energy. and it'll work itself out on its own, because it always does. And that's the big thing we're talking about wisdom, that's really been a game changer for me, is I no longer, Richard Carlson here, sweat the small stuff. I just don't. Even the big stuff, if something doesn't work out, I have such a deep trust that it's okay, that it's not working out because it's not the right time, or it's not meant to work out, or it's not the right direction for me. Like, I know that. So I'm no longer at the mercy of what happens in my life. Again, doesn't mean that I love everything that's going on, but I'm not at the mercy of it anymore. So it's not a life or death situation for me, whether something works out or not. So that's just been incredibly freeing.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I want to just jump on that thing
Please.
for a minute about, and I know we have a question which I'd like to address too.
Oh, yes.
Both of us can address. But on that not doing anything, I have never ever been so busy in my life. I did not get. I heard the not doing anything. But what happened for me is I started to not spend time up here planning and strategizing and scaring myself to death into non-action. That whole thing, as I said, that whole sorry, I was just looking at the chat there for a second. That insecure thinking, oh, you can't do that, you can't. I was really not very productive at all. I had lots of planning and lots of ideas, but I would talk myself out of them. I would just keep, restricting everything. Once I started to not trust that thinking, or know that it was just, absolutely not true, wisdom started saying, well, why you do this? And why you do that? And because I knew not to believe any insecurity, I just started showing up and started doing these things. And it's a miracle how much I get done without planning anything. I mean, of course, once the suggestion comes from wisdom, or go in this direction, or follow that thread, or whatever it is, of course we implement our personal thinking or our wonderful intelligence, and I make a note and I say, okay, I'm going to do this or whatever. But this used to be the boss of me. This was what I trusted. Not anymore. This follows that intuition. That's the boss of me. My wisdom, my intuition. This is the sort of the thing that steps in and helps make things happen. But it is not the boss of me anymore. That was huge for me, because, as I said, it would remind me of, well, you've never done that in the past. What makes you think you're going to do it in the future? It would do all that thinking, all that put down, all that, stuff to make me shrink and go, yeah, you're right. I've never done it before. I'm not going to do it now. So
all those stories.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it isn't, when you say do nothing, it means don't, step away from this and allow the intelligence behind life, mind, God, whatever you want to call it, to just live through you. And the energy of that is really, it's just, God, it's magical. I mean, Chip Chipman calls it the magic carpet ride.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the following the golden threads. Often when we're looking over here with our planning and our strategy, we don't see the beauty, the treasure that's right in front of us, asking for us to just pick it up and follow it. So it's been an incredible journey of discovery. Sorry, I'm yes, all of those are lovely. I'm going to join in too now, talk about the books. Some of my favorite books, let me see what we've got here. Michael Neal's, love him. Exquisite Mind, that's wonderful, from Terry. Some of my favorite books are, I love Elsie Spittle's
wonderful, yes.
And there's another one I've read all of Elsie's. They're just magical and very easy to dip into. Dick and Bettinger and Natasha
Coming
Sword
Home is wonderful, yeah.
And if you have any habits, which I'm sorry, I don't think it's a person on the planet that doesn't have some type of habit, whether your habit is overthinking or overeating or drinking or relationship addiction or whatever it is. Dr. Amy Johnson's a little book, A Big Change, is incredible.
Yeah.
So there's tons of maybe we'll, you know what, should we do a little book list when we send out the,
Yeah, we can do. I was just thinking that Maddie, because I know my sweet Maddie, and I think she would enjoy Michael's writing. That's why it popped up for me. I just think that,
I
that
love
you,
Michael's, yeah,
that you would just get a kick out of him.
yeah. And The
Uh,
Space Within is another one of his that I
yes.
love.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah. I also put in the chat, if the course that we have coming up, if any of you want to take a look at it, it starts next Thursday, and we're going to be, each week, we're going to be exploring the principles, a different topic. We're going to be looking at anxiety and depression, our own resilience, creating healthy relationships, habits and addictions. We're going to be exploring freedom from grief and fear. We're going to be talking about that, and just getting comfortable with the unknown. So those are just some of the topics. And if you just want to take a peek at the page, you can see what we'll be doing over the next 8 weeks. But
We're extending the early bird
yes,
special.
we have our early bird. So if you can hop on, and if you have any questions, you can always contact Del and I on Facebook, send us a message, or if you can contact us via email, we would love to share the next 8 weeks with you. It's been a wonderful course. It's our third one so far, and we have people that are coming back for the third time, which is fantastic. And it's just a very nice, intimate group, and we get to know one another. And the beauty of it is you can share as much or as little as you want. You don't have to say a word. You can pipe in. It's totally up to you. And one of the things that it was interesting, somebody had contacted me yesterday, and she said to me, she said, I'd love to work with you. She said, and I feel uncomfortable. I don't want to air my dirty laundry. And it was really funny because I emailed her, and I said, the beauty of this understanding is that you don't have to share any dirty laundry. You don't have to, it's not about what you think your story is. It's about seeing that it is a story, that it is a narrative. So you don't have to dig into your deep, dark stuff that you consider yucky, that you think is yucky. You don't have to do any of that, because once you see, and I say this with compassion and kindness, the made upness of what we keep alive, of what we give our attention to, of what looks very true to us. Once we see that the nature of that, it's content. And again, I say that with kindness and love and tons of respect. I'm not making little of what anyone has experienced. What I'm saying is that our suffering currently in the moment is based on content. And once we see that that's what it is, it's a game changer. It's a game changer. And we just, both Del and I, want to share what it's done for us, because we have both experienced a lot of suffering in different ways, and are in a space of freedom. And now we know why we're in a space of freedom, because we're able to see the underlying principles that are creating our experience. And that's just a game-changing foundation. It is the foundation. I think that's why it's so compelling.
Yeah, and I just want to jump onto that, because I know when I first came across the principles, I was going through a very hard time. Not first, but when I went back into them in 2015, I'd lost 3 people in my family: my sister, my mother, and my sister-in-law within an 8-month period. And a lot of other stuff was going on because we had a family business. And I almost didn't stay in the community because I felt that my experience of life was being dismissed, and I wasn't ready for that. So I really want to put that caveat in there, that as much as we can point you in another direction, we absolutely support whatever you're going through. It is a safe place.
Yeah.
With the group of women we've had in our previous, there's been tears, there's been sharing. It's a safe, beautiful place to share what you're going through. There is no spiritual bypass. There is no sort of deflection of it's just your thinking.
Right.
So, we and for me in particular, I work with a lot of women that are and men actually that are pretty traumatized, and I'm very, 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 very respectful of the experience you're going through in the moment. But I know I can also point you, as Andrea does with her clients, point you in a direction that you will come through the other end, and life will be just amazing.
Yeah.
You will be so supported and loved to help get you there. So
Yeah, absolutely.
and like we say, we still get caught up. I mean, the best teachers will say, I still get caught up, because that's what it is to be human. We're not looking for, this sort of, as I say, the spiritual bypass of perfection. Oh God, I can't admit I'm having a low day, or I can't admit that I'm having a thought storm right now that's taking me down. It's like, hey, welcome to life. That's what we're, spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
And as such, we are going to forget sometimes, get caught up in that little bubble of storm thoughts. And it's going to feel really, really painful at times. And I often say to people, Sid said, life is a contact sport. Well, from my perspective, that means that, yeah, life can push up against us sometimes. And that's what's so beautiful about this 8 weeks, is we're there for each other when life does push up against us.
Yeah.
People were grieving the loss of family members, many different things. So it really is a beautiful, beautiful, safe space. So just wanted to.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting. I was been doing leading the 3P grounding group for the January for January. And one of the things that came up, and these are we're 3 principles practitioners. So these are people that are training to become 3 principles practitioners. So they were asking what I had shared with them is that when I work with a client, it's not my job to make them understand the principles. Like, that's not up to me. If they want to have a deeper understanding, like understand what mind, consciousness, and thought are and go into the physics of it, fantastic. But I don't shove it down their throat. There's a reason I'm sharing this. My job is to be grounded in this, because the more my understanding deepens, the more I can hold a space for whomever I'm in front of in any situation. And that's what it's about. The other stuff comes as a result. So just to piggyback on what you were saying, Del, that wherever you are is perfectly okay. Like, there's no, well, you should understand that you're experiencing thought. No, we feel our thinking, and sometimes it really hurts. And that is very, very real. So I love that you brought that up, Del. It's so very important that we absolutely honor where everyone is, and there's no better place to get to. It's the more I see within me that there's an underlying okayness, the more I see that within everyone that I come in contact with. That's helpful. That's helpful. So I just wanted to share that because it's so important to have the understanding that there's no sort of shaming or, well, don't you know it's thought, there's none of that going on. We're human, and we're here to encourage all of us that we're in contact with to be okay with our humanness, just to be okay with it.
And to be okay with our experience. That's another one of Sid's, if that's all we got was to not be afraid of our experience, that alone would change the world. And that's so true. I can have, my partner he's as steady as a rock. He just is like that. I'm all over the place. I'm an emotional person. I can have highs and lows and everything, but the understanding of the principles has actually brought me more alive than less alive. I feel my anger more deeply because it doesn't scare me anymore. I feel my frustration. I don't act out on these feelings, but I allow myself to have it. It's okay. It's energy rushing through me. If I want to be in a bad mood, it's my choice. I'm going to marinate in my thinking and feel justified in my bad mood. I sometimes go, I think I'm going to hang out here a bit, whatever. But it's just, I can cycle through feelings with zero judgment on any of it. I can have, I can be very judgmental, not about my friends or my family so much, but say, the state of the world or things like that. I can, but none of it is bad. And I don't ever think, oh, if I'm spiritual, I shouldn't be having this feeling. It's like, nope. we would never have been created with the capacity to feel the wide range of emotions that we feel if any of them were wrong, knowing that we are creating them within ourselves. But have fun with it. It's like painting. It's like, you know, coloring with the crayons. It's like use all the colors. Just, but ultimately, we know that we are creating that piece of art for ourselves. We can't blame anybody else or our environment for how we feel.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with feeling it all. I really, really want to emphasize that too.
Yeah. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? We certainly want to honor everybody's time. Linda, did I see you do this? No? Okay. Okay. All right. Did you have anything else that you'd like to share, Adele?
No, fine.
No?
Okay.
Okay.
How about
Perfect.
you?
Oh, hi, Judy. Let me see if I can
saying
unmute.
goodbye, or was she saying she has a question?
Oh, I don't know. Judy, I have no idea. Judy, do you have to unmute yourself unless you were just saying goodbye? I don't know.
Okay, I'm
Hello,
unmuted.
dear.
Hi there.
It's so
Hey.
nice to see you.
It's so good to be here to see you. And Dell, it's so nice to meet you. I was tuning in last week and finally got a chance to see you too. So this is really wonderful. I have to tell you, I spent my whole life trying to fit into my marriages. I was married twice and divorced twice. Raising 3 children on my own for 10 years. Their needs came before mine. Made myself sick because of all the stuff going on in your head. Had to have the best of everything. I call it my caviar taste on a beer budget.
I love that.
All of the stuff that I accumulated throughout the years, material stuff, which cluttered my life so badly that throughout my 30s, I was sick every single year. When I let go of all of that physical stuff, I felt relief. When I got out of my marriages and my kids got older, and I've been working since I was 16. I got married very young the first time, and it didn't work. I was too young and too naive for a lot of things. I won't go into that. Waited a while and got married the second time. And the second one happened to be an alcoholic who was physically and mentally abusive. And being the type that you don't give up, you try and make it work. My parents were married for 63 years. That's a hell of a milestone.
Mm-hmm.
And to try and recreate. And I had a great childhood. It's my adult life I screwed up. But I don't look at it as, it took me a long time to grow up and realize that I don't have to be anything to anyone except to myself. I'm responsible for me. I can teach my children things, but my children have their own life and their own path to live. The only thing that I can do is be there to support them, be there to help them if they ask for help or my advice. They can take it or leave it. But I'm not responsible for them. The only one I'm responsible for is me. And when I quit work and I retired, and I've been retired now for, it's going on 3 years, I felt such a freedom because I was no longer at someone else's beck and call. I was free to do what I wanted, when I wanted. And if I felt like doing nothing, that was okay. And to reiterate with Dell, because when she said about getting your crayons out and coloring, that's my new hobby. I do color by number. It's hysterical. It's like my inner child came back out. And I love it. I love that creative part of that. I always have. I used to be a list maker. And my lists became other lists. My mother used to say, "Do you still make lists?" I said, "Oh my God, Mom, of all the things you could remember about me, that you remember that?" I said, "Yeah, I still make lists, except now my lists have lists." We kind of laughed at that. I don't make lists anymore, except one to go to the grocery store. I just do what I feel like doing on any given day. I'm not an avid reader. I don't read, but I live. I live life, and I love the life I'm living now. It took me a long time to get here, and I'm enjoying every moment. Even if I just sit and do nothing, that's a choice that I'm making. And I haven't been sick. The big point is, because my head is clear and hasn't affected my physical being, I haven't been sick. I just went to the doctor. I'm 69. I just turned 69. And I just had my physical at the doctor with all of my blood work. And I'm in perfect health. I'm on no meds. She says, "I don't know what you're doing, but just keep doing it." So I'm like, hell yes, I'm going to do it.
Oh, fantastic, Judy.
So that's, that's where I'm at. And I love this group, because you are such a light and so intuitive. And a lot of the things that you discuss, I've been through. So I just sit and listen, because it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. So thank you for reminding me of where I've been, so I can stay where I'm at now.
That's beautiful.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Judy. Tons of love.
Beautiful. And that's so true. And I love what you're speaking to, because as human beings, we keep thinking we have to be doing, but I'm hearing you just being and just really loving where you're at. And yeah, that's so beautiful. And that is the beauty of the group too. Just like you were describing, that you can sit and listen and go, me too. That is the beauty of a group. Because when we sort of isolate or separate, we can sometimes start listening to that thinking and thinking that we're all alone and we're the only one thinking this way, and we're whatever it is. But when we come together as a group, especially a group of women, because then there's no distractions or no hiding, we really, oh my God, it's so healing to go, oh, we're going to do this. And we would notice in our groups, the thread would be like, oh my God, this is going on in our lives too.
Yeah.
And we had people that were 20, from in their 20s to their 70s, and it was just it was miraculous, the similarities.
Yeah.
So thank you. That was so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it so very much. Laura, I see you. I see all of you. Thank you so very much. We're so happy that you spent time with us. Hi.
Bye, everybody.
Yes. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Del.
Oh, thank you so much.
Love you.
Thank you. Love you too. Mwah. Thank you, Leah. Thanks for coming. Linda.
Bye.
Erin. Bye,
Bye.
See you
Judy.
next week.
Yay.
Yay.
I love
Thank you, Judy.
Get to know you more. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Oh, let me turn off the recording. I always forget.